It'll show here.
I just want to make sure we're muting.
Hello. Can you guys hear us, see us? If you can, let us know in the chat.
Hi.
Oh yeah, I have to mute my video too. Okay, hold on. In the chat.
Yeah, I need to as well.
Okay, I just hear myself 12 times. Okay, here we go.
All right, we're good. We're live.
I think we're good.
Hi, everyone. To mute it. Hi, everyone.
Hello.
If you are here, thank you so much for joining us. We'll probably wait just like a few moments just for people to trickle in. And I'm trying to see, I'm on my YouTube too, and I'm not seeing, like, I don't know if my chat is not going, I don't know. But I have with me the amazing duo, Voyage is a Verb. And if you don't know who I am, my name is Becky Park, and this is my YouTube channel, Becky Park on Poshmark. And I asked my wonderful peers and friends to come on because they are doing amazing things. So I'm going to let them introduce themselves really quickly. And then maybe if you guys want to talk about just all the things that you have your hands in right now, because you're not simply resellers. You don't just sell on like one platform or something. You're doing a lot of really cool things. So maybe if you want to introduce yourselves and then talk about some of those things.
Do you want to go?
Yeah, it's easiest for me to go first because I talk less.
Yeah, it's true.
I am Kevin. Hello. Voyage is a Verb is our main business, and Twice Our Cost is our website and another business of ours. And Voyage the label is another distant thing. By the way, my beard is humongous because quarantine. I can't get it trimmed.
Yeah, I should probably get in there and that up here
this
soon.
Is Kristen.
Hi everyone, I'm Kristen. I am the other half of Voyage is a Verb. We're married, and so we're quarantining at home and trying to get as much as we can done at home right now. Which is kind of, it's like the wild west right now, just trying to keep up with our business and trying to pivot where we need to make sure that we can pay our bills during a time where we can't go out and source in our traditional way. This is Sherlock, and she'll probably be hanging out with us a bit. So yeah. Other than that, I mean, we're Poshmark sellers. That was our main priority is Poshmark. And then we started Twice Our Cost, where we sell our finds when we go out sourcing for double what we paid for it. So basically the idea being that we don't have any attachment or anything like that to market value. What we find, like our deals are basically our customers' deals. So when we find a good deal, we just list it for twice what we paid for it. So that's awesome.
And you guys mentioned quarantine a little bit. How is that going for you guys? And what does a day look like for you now versus maybe like before we were all stuck at home?
Every day looks different right now. Every day looks like wildly different. Honestly, this is week 4 for us of pretty much staying home, except for like leaving for like essential stuff. But this is week 4 for us, and we haven't been sourcing in like traditional sourcing in that just as long. Thrift stores were actually open a lot longer. Like they only shut down fairly recently, like a week ago. They were open longer. Yeah, Arizona was from Arizona, so they were slow on the upturn. Yeah, so every day looks different. We're spending a lot of time just trying to move what we already have. I think that's priority number 1. We already had a lot of inventory, so just moving that, getting everything listed that we already had, and then we are doing some sourcing online.
And this week we have like a ton of online stuff coming in. So thankfully we feel a lot of hope this week with what we have coming up.
Yep.
But before that, it was rough. The quarantine has been freaking hard.
It's been hard, and sourcing online is incredibly competitive right now.
Yeah, everyone's doing it.
Yeah. Everyone's doing it. So.
Everyone's doing it, and everyone's like providing tutorials on how to do it too, which is great. But it means everyone's getting better at doing it as well. So
exactly. And we had already sourced online as part of our business. So it wasn't like, it's not new territory for us, but the places that we have historically gone to have been overrun, and we found that prices are a little bit higher, or I think we're a little bit more picked over. So we have to be a little bit more like mindful of that, I guess. Yeah.
So let's talk about sourcing a little bit, kind of going back to happier times when you guys could go out and source. And I know you share a lot on your Instagram stories and just on your Instagram feed in general. And by the way, I do have their website linked below so that you can go there, and it's kind of a one-stop shop to also, go to their Twice Our Cost website or their Poshmark closet, and you can just kind of learn more about them as a brand. But on your Instagram, you guys talk a lot about sourcing together as a team. Can you talk a little bit about like the roles that you two play? Because I know like my husband and I, when we go thrifting together, which doesn't happen too often, but we have kind of a system. So I'd love to hear kind of what you guys do together.
So it's evolved through the years. I've gotten much, much, much better. But it evolved from essentially me going and grabbing every colored item that was on sale I could possibly find and just letting her kind of roll through it. To me, still doing that, but doing it with like much more knowledge. Yeah. So, if I bring her 30 things now, she'll return 4 of them, whereas it used to be like 28 of them.
Yeah.
So I'm getting much, much, much better at that. But my basic role is to just do what I do, having less knowledge than her overall. She's been doing it for 5 years, so
7 years.
Than me.
Yeah. 5 years is longer than you.
And so that's, I just go in and kind of whirlwind, pick up everything I can think that she might even like. And she goes through and fine tunes it.
Yeah. So I think, oh my gosh, Sherlock, I think she's out now. She's up above us like the goddess that she is, just overboard.
Yeah.
We're in front of a window and we've got some like window hangs for the cats to lay on so that they don't lay on their computers and they like it. That's exactly right. Because obviously I think we only sell women's clothing. We should make that known as well. We don't sell men's clothing. We don't sell kids' clothing. We don't do home goods. We just sell women's clothing. And so for that reason, when Kevin started sourcing with me, he started doing other things. He started sharing the closet and shipping and doing those things. Yeah. But at some point, I realized that sourcing is probably the most critical skill that you need to have as a retailer. So I was like, Kevin, you have to get comfortable with this if you're going to do this full time with me. Like, I'm sorry, you just have to get comfortable with it. And so he had to get comfortable with the idea of going through women's dresses and being okay with the fact that there are others that are not happy about that, or who are, trying to cut him off or whatever it might be. He faces a lot more aggression than I do in the stores because he's a man and because he is a pretty big man. Like he's like he doesn't belong in the dress section. You know what I mean? For a lot of people would see that and just be like, well, you're clearly a reseller. And so, whereas I don't get that same kind of, challenge. So that was something that we had to come up with was, hey, you have to get comfortable with this. And he was pretty comfortable. He's never had any insecurity around it, but it was just a matter of now you have to get comfortable with these brands. Now you have to get comfortable with these different things. And he, so
and a surprisingly vital part of being the more, I guess, passive shopper is waiting in line, because at certain places the line can be almost an hour.
That's crazy.
She can keep shopping and bringing things to me while I'm in line, and I could be like setting out offers or doing something else.
So many ways to do
Yeah, exactly.
Or he'll be if we're somewhere where it's hard to navigate a cart around or something like that. He can be somebody who you can have the cart, or you can be the person. If there's no cart, he can be the person, holding the ton of stuff that we've got. But he's really good with plus sizes, really good with jeans. I don't enjoy jeans or pants at all, so he comes in and does that for me.
That's awesome. I know. And I feel like a lot of your stories, before quarantine hit and everything, I feel like they were so complimentary of how much Kevin has grown as, a picker at the thrift stores and stuff. So clearly you've been teaching him well, and he's been a good student, and he's just been learning a lot on his own. So now I'm curious, like, what is the craziest thing that's happened to you, Kevin, when you've been thrifting? Like, just from other people, or?
I can't think of a story, but there's so many.
It's not abnormal at all. So
and wait, we should caveat with whatever story you're about to say. Kevin he puts his earphones in. What are they called?
My AirPods.
AirPods. He puts his AirPods in. He doesn't bother anyone if somebody cuts him off. He just goes around them. He's super chill, super easy. But sometimes people can get kind of aggressive with him.
And the way that it mostly works now is, I just assume people know I'm a reseller. So as soon as I get down an aisle and start picking things up, people will start cutting, a foot in front of me. And what am I going to do? I'm like a 6 foot, 200 pound guy. I'm not going to yell at somebody in the middle of the store. I'm going to get kicked out. It's just the way it is. So but that's the most common. People constantly jump right in front of me, like a foot. And if I move to the next rack, they jump a foot in front of me in that rack.
I think, and that's honestly, it's the same with me in some regard. And I'm sure you've felt this way too, Becky. Like as a thrifter, if somebody catches on that you're a reseller, like they're trying to get to the stuff before you do, because they want to make sure that they have a chance to like look through it before you pick over it. You know what I mean? And so some people don't have that mindset that there's plenty for everyone and everybody's looking for different things. And that's okay. And so I get people doing the same thing to me, but I think he gets it more just because there's no other, I mean, there's a 95% chance that he's a reseller in the dress section, you know, or in the women's pants section or wherever he is. So
but the most is people who like literally like shoulder me. Is
we go to some places that have, I think it's also like where you go. Like there's some stores that are super chill. We tend to find ourselves in locations that are a little bit more competitive. So
like I'm not a tough guy. I love everybody, but I understand that I look a little tougher. So like people that just bully me makes me feel so weird. Like what do you think is gonna happen? Like you're doing this because you know I can't do anything, or else you wouldn't be taking advantage of me.
And honestly, exactly what Kathy said. Aren't you always amazed that people don't want the same stuff that you do? It's so true. Sometimes I'll see somebody with a cart stacked so high, and I'm like, I shouldn't even go through that rack because, like, what's the point? You go through it, and you're like, whoa, like, look at what they missed, and they don't want that. That's for you. And I think that there's just like so much truth to that. And I mean,
I'm an expert at brands. I know brands. I would imagine more than 90% of.
I mean, as a reseller,
and that alone gives me, even if it's just the option to pick those up and show them to more of an expert like Kristen is huge. For my brands. Brand recognition is such a big part of our game. You got to know what you're looking at.
Let's talk about that a little bit, because that's one of the things I love the most about, you know, your Instagram page, as well as like just scrolling through Twice Our Cost, your guys' website, is every time I am on that website, or, you know, you guys are talking about what you've picked up recently, I'm like, I've never heard of that, or I don't know what that is, or, you know, and one thing I love too about your Instagram feed, and Kristen, you've talked about this before, I think in your stories, about how you do curate your feed, and like every other picture is usually something that you've picked up, as well as you sharing knowledge about, you know, that brand or that item or whatever. But can you talk to us a little bit about how you learned about the brands that people want, and how you're kind of always like on the cusp of what's up and coming too? Because I feel like I learned about brands once like it's become so saturated already, but you guys always seem to be like on the forefront of, this is about to be the next big thing, you know, like
we try.
That's really nice.
So nice. I think that for me, I would say, okay, this is going to sound kind of crazy, but I would say online sourcing really helped me a lot, because what I would do, and I know everyone's doing it now, but it was helpful in my gaining of my knowledge, was I would go to a high-end website like the Outnet or Intermix or Revolve, anything that has like what I know is like higher end designer pieces. I would go to those websites and I would pull up the brand index, and I would take the brand index and I would go through the ones that I don't know, and I would go and I would search those brands on Poshmark, or search them on ThreadUp, or search them somewhere to see what the comps look like. So I learned a lot of brands that way, but honestly, I've been doing this for 7 years now, and I have touched probably hundreds of thousands of pieces of clothing. Probably, I would say maybe even 1 million, I don't know. But I would just say that just comes with time too. I mean, the more you're touching things, the more you're researching things, the more you're looking things up, you know, and just keeping your ear to the ground on pop culture and what's happening, what are people wearing. You can, you know, there's tons of like blogger influencers, and say what you will about them, but they are telling their audience what the new brands are and what you should be looking for.
Yeah. Awesome. And so you guys kind of talked about how, Kristen, you've been doing this for 7 years, and then did you guys just hit like your 1 year anniversary or something of doing this full time? Right?
Yeah. Well, actually, we thought we did. Well, full time. Yeah, we've been doing about 1.5 years full time.
Okay.
So I thought I hit 7 year anniversary of reselling, but it turned out that I was like 5 months off. I went back to my eBay. I started on eBay. I went back to my eBay, and I was like, oh no.
So
You're like, actually,
I had 5 months less less knowledge than I thought I did.
But still. So can you talk to us about kind of even what the beginning of your reselling journey looked like? So Kristen, obviously you started on eBay. Mm-hmm. At what point did Kevin decide to join you? You know, what was he doing before? How did you guys get to where you are right now?
Yeah, I started reselling because I would go into thrift stores for myself and I would find some designer pieces and I was like, literally, these are just going to go to a landfill if nobody knows what this is and no one picks it up. Mm-hmm. These were things that were like $1. Like, I mean, it was like a Humane Society thrift store that I would frequent pretty often. And I would just find these things. And I didn't know a lot about brands, but we live by the Scottsdale Mall, which is like a really nice mall. And so I had seen obviously storefronts there of designers and things like that. So there was an element of understanding, you know, certain designers. And so when I found them, I'd be like, whoa, like I know this is worth more than this. So I would buy them and I'd put them on auction on eBay for 99 cents. And I was like, if somebody bids, that means I made my money back. And I just explored. Kevin was not into it at all. He's always been very supportive, but it was just not something that he got excited about at all. So at first I tried, like, because we do everything together. We're best friends, so we just do a lot of our life together. So at first he would like come to the thrift stores with me, but it would end up with him like on a chair in the corner playing on his phone. And he'd be like, all right, are you done yet? Or like, are we still here? And he was trying to be patient, but you know, when you're somewhere where you don't want to be and like, it's no fun. Yeah. So for a few years, I ended up just going on my own and it was my own hobby that I did myself. And I never asked him to come with me. And then things kind of progressed through the years and I was always doing it as like a side hustle, but
making pretty good money.
Yeah, like good side hustle money. I think a lot of people here are probably doing it as a side hustle to make that extra income. We were using it for vacations. We were using it for my own wardrobe. We were using it as fun money, basically. And I love doing it. So it was really fun to be able to do that. Few years passed and it started growing and I couldn't keep up with a demanding job and the shipping that I had to do. And so Kevin started sharing the closet. He started shipping and he started like helping in those ways that were like, I could just teach him in a few minutes. Here's how you do this. Here's how you ship. Here's how you do that. Especially Poshmark. They make it so easy to ship. It's like, just put something in a box and put the label on it. It's not hard. So shipping for him was really easy for him to pick up. And so we like brought Kevin in to do those basic things. And like I said, he's always been supportive. He just didn't know how to help and he didn't know what to do. And I feel like I was learning and he was just kind of like the support at that point. But he had a job transition after he had been helping me with everything else, pretty much except for sourcing. He was doing pretty much everything. And I was like, hey, like, what if you did this with me full time and you help support this full time? But the caveat to that was you have to start sourcing with me. And I think that's what you mentioned earlier is when I told him, like, you have to do this with me means like you have to do it all with me. And he agreed and he's been great about it. So,
Kevin, do you feel like you're in a place now where you enjoy thrifting?
You know what? Now that we're in quarantine, I can say that yes, I do. I miss it, which is not something I ever imagined myself saying.
Look at that.
I'm pretty excited to go back.
Yeah.
Honestly. That's amazing.
Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah, that's surprising. It's cool.
Yeah.
It's so interesting. I know we like missed it, but I don't know if Hugo's still here from
I hope so.
But he was mentioning it. He's like, apparently I look grumpy enough that no one approaches me or says anything to me, which is crazy because he kind of looks like you a little bit.
I just like put my headphones in and listen to death metal. I look like why are people approaching me?
They're probably hearing the death. No, actually, if you have AirPods in, I mean, it's kind of hard. They don't, but that's.
What do I do?
No, and for me, we don't really have. I don't think that there are a lot of resellers in my area. I mean, I live in a really weird area where it's like rural, but then it's a college town. And so there are some thrift stores. And I know that there are, a handful of resellers because, I see them on Instagram and stuff and we've connected. But I don't know that I've ever had that experience where I'm at a store and, there's like someone and we're like eyeing each other and trying to get to the person. I hear people in bigger cities, because you guys are in Phoenix. Is that
yes.
correct?
And I was going to say that. I was going to say, honestly, Phoenix is a reselling mecca.
Yeah,
there's a lot of resellers here, which is actually, it's a double-edged sword. There's the competition aspect of it, but the other side of it is that it's a very rich and very connected community.
Yeah.
Like the Phoenix reselling community looks out for each other. And we've made like really great friends, like even in like thrift stores, like we'll go to places and we'll see people over and over, and then we become friends with them. And so I shouldn't say it's like some like weird, like always competitive here. I feel like we're putting too much emphasis on that, because I think the reselling community out here is amazing. And I think you're right. It's a big city thing.
Yeah.
Sure. We have a few things out here this way, like outlets and things like that are really popular that people travel to from other states. And so, it's good to be a reseller in Phoenix. It's challenging, and it's got some definitely like, and it depends on where you source to. I mean, some places are much chiller than others. So
Okay. Well, so one of the reasons why I have been kind of admiring you guys from afar for so long is because you guys are doing a lot of really cool things, a lot of really big things. So in case people may not know your brand or who you guys are, what you guys do that well. So obviously you guys sell on Poshmark. You also have another website that you've created called Twice Our Cost, where you are thrifting items and then selling them to your audience for just, twice the amount that you paid for it. I know, Kristen, like you also do web design for people, like mainly Shopify stores. You guys started like a clothing brand that I know it's still like in its baby steps, but that was something that when that dropped, I was like, oh my God. I mean, you guys are making such big moves. So I would love to hear, as someone who, I feel like I'm always too scared to act on an idea. What does that look like? Like there's the idea, and then how do you see it all the way to fruition? And what does that look like too as a team? Like I'm going to make my assumptions about who the person is that comes up with these grand schemes. You have to do the supporting and like that, but like honestly, what does all of that look like?
I mean, that is the team, the team dynamic. Kristen comes up with all the ideas, and I'm a workhorse.
Yeah, it's true. Honestly, Kevin, like the fact that we ship regularly is all Kevin. The fact that we stay on top of things, the fact that our closet gets shared is because of Kevin. Like the things that he knows that we need to do in order to keep running, he makes sure happens. And of course I help with those things too. But at the end of the day, I have lots of ideas, and I have an idea, and I'm not somebody who like really plans out every single detail before I implement it. I'm very much let's just action it and like see if it works. And if it doesn't work, like let's pivot quickly. It's like act fast, learn fast. And I think that's a big aspect of like what we're doing. There's been way more stuff that we have said we were going to do, things that we've announced, things that we like, areas we wanted to take our business that didn't work out. That happens all the time. And I think that you have to be like for me, I have to be okay with that. I have to be okay with the fact that not everything is going to work out. And to me, everything's an experiment. Everything is, can we try this? And how can we try it in a way that's not going to completely like shift our business in a direction? You know what I mean? Like how do you, so for Twice Our Cost, for example, as you mentioned, we go out and source. For Twice Our Cost, like the business model is more like finding great deals at like buy, sell, trade stores and consignment stores, finding good sales and bringing those deals at double the cost to people. And for that, the way I started is I was at an outlet and I had a cart full of stuff, and I was like, I wish I could get rid of this right now. Like, I wish I didn't have to go home and list this.
Yeah.
And so I did a live video. And so that was like a really easy way for me to see, is this something that people want? Is this something that people are excited about? And I did like 3 of them, and they were challenging, and the invoicing afterwards was hard, but it was a really quick and easy way for me. Like I had the idea in line, and then an hour after I got home, I went live with it and I was able to sell it off. So there's this kind of like if that didn't work, if nobody joined the live, if nobody bought it, I would have just been like, okay, time to pivot somewhere else, time to do something else. And if you can just have that mindset of like, can you do something? Is there a lightweight way to try an idea that you have versus spending an entire week? Like I could have spent like a whole week building our website and listing all of this stuff, and then nobody showed up. And that would have been a very poor use of our time versus can we do this like in a streamlined, quick way? So I would say that like and that's just my personality type. Like Kevin is somebody, he's great at implementing. He's great at keeping things steady. And so like while I'm up in the clouds, he's up here just staying constant and making sure that we can still be generating that income that we know that we can do.
Hopefully.
Yeah.
And I think that's really helpful what you shared. Like if there is a lightweight version of the big dream that you have, to try that out first. Because for me, on my end, I don't think I was aware that you did those live videos at first to, like you said, test the waters to see like, is this even a viable option as far as another, pivot in our business? I just saw the website and I was like, this is so cool. I can't believe they did this. So that's really, I think sound advice, like try it out on a smaller scale if possible. And then, continue to run forward with it. And that's awesome, Kevin, that you're like supportive about, your dream.
It's surprising. Like for as consistent as he is, like my ideas or things that I want to do never shake him. He never gets like Kristen, you just tried something last week. Like, can we please just like get this normal for a bit? Like he just takes it all in stride, which I think is a really great like dynamic that we hold.
And what's unique about Twice Our Cost is honestly the way we were doing it with Instagram Live and just people's different lagging internets. And there's no honest way to see who got it first. It wasn't viable. That wasn't work.
But it's like the proof of concept. It's like it's like, okay, people will buy our stuff quickly at double the cost.
And it was an easy enough test. There was no risk.
And one thing I should note too with Twice Our Cost for those who aren't familiar with it, we don't tend to thrift with it because we can't flip things for $4. Like if we can't buy it for $2 and flip it for $4, it just doesn't make sense time-wise. So we're spending more time at like buy sell trade stores. Like, can we find like a Reformation dress for $17? Oh no, I picked a number that I don't know how to do.
I was trying to do that math in my head. I was like, 17 times 2.
34. Kevin's good with math. Can we buy for 17 and flip it for 34? But maybe the market value of it is 55. And we were able to flip that same day. And so basically you're trading off this idea of, can we get quick flips and immediate capital and immediate cash flow instead of holding out for a high offer. And we have our Poshmark closet too, so we have both happening at once. That way we can get quick flips, we can get immediate capital, but we also have the stuff in our Poshmark closet that's helping us, like that is more like market value that we're getting out of those pieces. So I wanted to make sure we made it like clear kind of what the purpose of Twice Our Cost is and why we do that.
Totally.
Yeah. And that is cool, like you said, to make sure that there is a mixture in your day-to-day sales of these were quick flips, these were maybe more long tail items that we were waiting for the right buyer or whatever. And I know it's probably different now than maybe it was even a month or two ago, but in any given day, what would you say is the percentage of, and I'm sure it also depends on like when you just listed stuff onto Twice Our Cost. But let's say it's like the day after you just listed a bunch of new stuff and you promoted it on Instagram. In that day, what percentage of your sales are coming from Twice Our Cost versus how many are coming from Poshmark? What does that look like?
It's changing so wildly right now because what we're able to source right now online and flipping that for twice the cost is much more challenging than sourcing in person. So right now I would say we're making more money on Poshmark. However, historically we've had Twice Our Cost since November. I would say we are probably doing 2/3 Twice Our Cost and a third Poshmark, maybe.
Probably tripling our business on Poshmark with Twice Our Cost.
Yeah.
Oh wow, that's awesome.
Yeah. But right now, that's not what it looks like right now. Poshmark is, I think, doing a little bit better.
Well.
Actually, Poshmark's doing pretty well for us right now. We've been surprised.
That's good. And it's because you've got like this master sharer over there. And I wish I could get my husband to share, but I think he would rather die.
I know. I think you sometimes.
You just got to put on a TV show or a podcast or something.
I know. And actually, I have a friend who, I mean, her closet is really small, but her husband will share when he's on the toilet. And I'm like, that's a good time. Like, I mean, what else are you doing, So you may as well put them to work.
Yeah.
And I feel like a lot of men with kids, they are in the bathroom much longer than they need to be. Like, I know you don't need it, It's like, if you're going to get away from it all, like, I'm at least going to put you to work. But I think my closet is a little too big for my husband to want to do that, like, while he's sitting on the toilet. So
Yeah, absolutely. Honestly, and that's like a big part is that you're like, that's what makes this dynamic work is that he's like okay with doing that, like boring, consistent, like making it happen. He understands that that's part of what makes us run, and he's great.
That's true. It just has to happen.
Yeah.
So it happens.
Yeah, I'm a little bit more like, I don't want to do it. Like, let's do it instead. Like, I don't want to share. Like, I'd rather go to sleep. I'd rather, whatever. And he's like, it has to happen, so it's going to happen.
Yeah. No, that's great. So you have like the consistency of all the things that need to happen in order to make sales consistently and successfully, but you also have someone like you who is constantly dreaming and thinking of ways to scale the business. So on that note, what was like the scariest leap of faith you've ever had to make regarding your business?
My guess is initially Kristen starting her Instagram account for Voyage is a Verb.
Yeah.
But that
that
was my guess, but that might not.
Well, what's yours? Do you have like the scariest?
Yeah, mine was was calling off searching for a job and just doing this.
Yeah.
That was my biggest like, oh crap, really? This like we're actually gonna okay, let's go.
Yeah.
It was pretty scary to put all our eggs in one basket.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, I would say I feel like the answer like feels like it should be when I was working for a small startup company, a tech startup company, and
awesome.
It was amazing. I loved that job. And it went under, and I decided, I was like, well, I guess this is what I'm going to do now. But that didn't it felt natural to me. It didn't feel super scary to me. Like the one when I started my Instagram account a couple of years ago, like I literally cried over it. I was so scared because it was the first time that I had taken what we were doing to the public space. So my friends could see and like my family could see. And like, I don't know, there was something so like, up until that point, it was always a side hustle. It was like my friends kind of knew I was doing it, but I wasn't promoting myself in a public way. And so I think that there was an element when I started this account that I was like, oh man, like I'm promoting to my friends. Like that is so terrifying. And so by the time I went full time with reselling, I had already had the Instagram account for a while, and it just felt like just kind of this natural progression to me. It didn't feel like a big leap. It was like, okay, well, just got to sell more.
Yeah. That's so interesting. I would have never thought that it was creating an Instagram account that would have been the scariest thing. But like you said, that's kind of saying to the world, like, I'm here, I'm doing this, and you are allowed to, come along for the ride. So I guess I can kind of see that. But I feel like you guys have done such big things. Like I thought you were going to say when we got our warehouse or when
No, and it shows her personalities. Her biggest fear is putting everything of her out, and my biggest fear was giving up like the insurance and the 401k and like.
Yeah. I think there was just, I felt like that was just kind of the first time where I felt like this, like kind of, we're here and now we're here. Everything else has felt really natural. I mean, getting in the warehouse was so thrilling to us. We just were so excited that we had no room for fear. I think sometimes there have been things that felt so exciting that there was no room to have fear. And that's been like, because we've made all these moves, it feels natural to make moves and to be excited about it and to let the excitement outweigh it.
Yeah.
When I started Instagram, there wasn't a lot of excitement. It was a lot of putting faith out there saying, I hope that this helps us.
Which is, again, it's mind-boggling to me because I feel like too, one thing that you guys are really good at is Instagram and being so intentional with it and, using it as a space where, yes, you're showcasing what is happening in your day-to-day and showing, what you're doing in your reselling journey. But also I feel like you are giving so much knowledge and just like teaching your audience so much about not just reselling, but like a lot of different things. And on that note, I feel like one thing you guys have done really well is create a brand for yourselves. And that's something that you've talked about a lot too on your Instagram is just what it means to be a brand that people want to associate themselves with, that people trust enough to, give their hard-earned dollars to. Can you talk a little bit about like what that process looked like? Especially because like I said, I think the way that you guys have gone about it, it's so intentional. And I think that is something that has to be in place in order for people to successfully come out with a brand like what you guys have.
Yeah.
And this is all Kristen. So.
Yeah. I think that for for me, it was realizing pretty quickly that you have to be comfortable with being your own brand, and that like you as an individual, like Becky, you're your own brand. Like people know you for being like so positive, and you're really great with education, and you're so community driven. And so like you have these parts that are your brand, like you are Becky. And I think that there is an element of like when we went to build a brand, and there's many ways you can build a brand, but I feel like because of the way we share our lives so transparently, I love to have fun. We love to like, we're pretty silly. I think we just like, there's an element of like, our brand has to be us, because if I'm going to pour my heart and energy into Instagram has been like our primary kind of platform for growing our brand. And so I felt like just if I'm putting my energy into this, like I want it to be me, and I want it to be my heart, and I want people to know me. And I think there is an element of when people purchase from somebody that they know, it feels like a little bit more connecting. And I don't know, like I know like when I make purchases, I'd rather purchase from a reseller that I know and love than I would even Nordstrom or something like that, even if the prices are pretty comparable, because there's an element of like, knowing and liking that person and trusting that person. And I don't know, outside of that, in terms of our like a visual brand, there's so many elements to a brand, right? There's so many elements. There's, literally like the logos and the feel of your brand. And there is an element of like, I think when you're building a resale brand, like there's an element of like, okay, well, like what you're selling is part of your brand, and the vibe of your Instagram feed is part of your brand.
And even down to like, Kristen is ethical to a fault. She will not take advantage of people despite my just desperate pleas.
You're like, we need to eat. We need to pay our bills.
No. Honestly,
it's true.
That stuff shows in your brand. She will not steal. Like, she won't take a penny. She won't raise the shipping. Like, all of these things that we could easily get away with, and honestly wouldn't make probably much of a difference to anybody, matters to her. And that shows through in your branding, and that's just something
I've tried to do well, it's true. And I think so I think that there's like we've done mystery boxes before, and there's like I'll sit there and I'll like write out what our cost is on everything, and then I'll be like, okay, well, what's the potential profit that they're gonna make per piece? And I'm like, oh my gosh, I should just list this myself. Like there's an element of like I want to protect people. And I think to your point, like when people order from us on Poshmark, there's a different experience for like people ordering us off of Poshmark versus our website, right? Because if it's our website, we know they know who we are. And there's an element of like, they know, like there's an element of like friendship there. You know what I mean? Whereas if somebody's ordering off of Poshmark, they believe they're ordering from Poshmark, right? So it's like, that's Poshmark's brand. And like, we just funnel our things that we're finding through Poshmark. But like when you have Instagram, if people buy from Instagram, if people buy from our own website, there's like an element of like really wanting to protect that,
Yeah.
At Twice Our Cost, especially, it's like our little baby.
Yeah.
Like
I remember I was explaining to my husband the concept of Twice Our Cost, and he was like, so you're just taking them at their word that they're only charging the amount that they bought it for. And I'm like, okay, but these people would not lie. Like I'm telling you, again, like you said, that's part of your brand, and it's
not lied yet.
He's like, telling me that and I'm like, I'm telling you, I really believe with all of my heart that the price that's on that website is only twice the amount that they had to pay for it. Like,
and that's part of building the brand is like, it's like the fact that you know that about us, I think just speaks volumes for like what we've put out into the world, the fact that you would trust that. And I think so for us, like our brand revolves around transparency and revolves around like being like, for me, I don't know if like kindness is the word, but like trusting people, like kind of this two-way street of like
yeah, for sure.
So whenever we get a case open on Poshmark, like our first instinct isn't to be like, well, how do we win this? Our first instinct is to say, well, we clearly missed something, so we need to make sure that like it's not even a loss. We'll get it back. It's fine. Yeah. So there is like this. So like I feel like just like vulnerability, trusting other people, like and trusting other people's experience is their experience, and even if it doesn't align with ours, like respecting that I think is really important. And then we want to bring great things in the world. We want to bring beauty into the world, and I love sourcing because I love like curating and I love bringing things to people that are special, you know?
Yeah. And I think it's good too, because when you guys do decide to throw your elbow in to a discussion of something that may be difficult for people to talk about or to hear about, like one thing I'm thinking about is I remember you guys kind of went off on Buffalo Exchange because you realized that they were buying, was it wholesale? Like they were buying,
So the way that, and actually most buy sell trade stores do this. So this is interesting that you even say that, because I know where you're going with this. Is that like we call out things and we need to call them out.
Yeah.
But sometimes I do that. And if you guys know us at all, we really aren't calling out kind of people. Like we tend to stay in our lane. We tend to do our own thing. But at that point I was just getting really frustrated because I was going into these buy sell trade stores. Specifically, this was at Buffalo Exchange. I'd be going through and I know that they have new inventory that's not brought in from someone else. So these are usually either liquidation or wholesale or something like that. We don't know what their specific business model looks like, but they're bringing in new pieces and they have a different tag than the other, like the stuff that people are bringing in. And they'll get a bunch of them and then they'll plant them around the store with other people's stuff. So there's kind of this like, they're trying to make you think that this is a secondhand piece when it's really a new liquidated
You're supporting
piece.
fast fashion. Like, you know, never
So,
know.
but I did, it was interesting because I brought that to Instagram and I was like, this is really annoying to me that it feels like they're trying to put one over on their customers. And whenever we do that, whenever we feel like riled up about anything, which is not very often, I feel like we get really great discourse from other people who share different viewpoints from us that really shape our perspective and shape how we see the world. And it's, you know, as much as I feel like sometimes, like, I feel like anytime you put anything on the internet, it's like someone has something to say, and it's
always,
you know what I mean? And anytime you do that, anytime you put any kind of resistance on something, you'll get that back. But it really helps shape and form my viewpoint of like, this is necessary for them to stay afloat, and they've done so much for the community and they've done so much good. It's kind of like telling someone who's trying to do good for the planet, but they do a couple things in their life that feels like essential in order for them to be able to do all the other things. It's like, businesses are the same way. And if a business is doing mostly good, cut them some slack. They're trying their best. But I did send an email over to them to be like, hey, could you maybe put the
and we're not saying they were trying to hide it. There was just a comment.
Yeah. Well, now they do. I don't know in the early 2000s, but now they'll get like a load of stuff and they'll like sprinkle it in. But I've shaped my perspective a little bit on that. And I think anytime we bring that resistance to the table, it's always an invitation to shape our perspectives.
Yeah.
And for us to be able to, but that's, yeah. And we, for the record, Buffalo Exchange is our baby and we love it probably more than any other thrift resale place on the planet. It just so happened that day I was at Buffalo Exchange. But every resale place in some regard has, at least all the ones I know of, have those second hands.
Yeah, it's pivoting. You gotta survive.
You gotta survive. And sometimes that means fluffing up your inventory with liquidated pieces or whatever that might be.
Yeah. And I think it was even just like you wanting and demanding that integrity of everyone around you and like the people that you deal with. You know, I mean, I think again, that's kind of what we've come to associate with your brand. Like even like you said, your baby, you're like, come on, like you gotta be better. Like we gotta be better together. And, you know, just not letting people pull a fast one on you or anyone else. And I think again, and then I think some people use their Instagram too, to just like, they're constantly venting. And I think you guys have created this really positive space as well. So if it ever does come up, we're always like, oh gosh, like this is important. This is a big deal, you know? But, and I like that you're only doing that when it's important and when it's something that people need to know about, you know, you're not just constantly, oh, this person did this or this person opened a case against me or whatever. So,
and then I wanted to be productive in that too, because we shared like, here's the tag of a new piece, just so you know what to look for. Here's what it looks like if it's a new piece. Here's what it looks like if it's a secondhand piece. And I felt like that was a productive step to like help people understand what they're buying when they're there. So, but yeah, I just think in general, I've also come to find that I'm more sensitive than I probably let on. So for me, I tend to stay out of things because I'm like, it's a lot of emotional labor for me to have back and forth with people and to have dissenting viewpoints, even though I know it helps build me as a person, and I very much invite that in, especially like especially when it's like a productive conversation and it's not yeah, I think productive conversations I'm really into, but sometimes, like, I'm sure you know, Becky, like there's some emotional weight that comes with sharing opinions that not everybody shares.
And I mean, and that's, like you said, it is like an emotional investment. It's a time investment of like, do I even want to put this out in the universe? Because then I'm going to have to deal with the aftermath, right? Like if I am going to voice an opinion about something that is going to cause a lot of discussion or discourse or whatever, do I want to even partake in that?
Anytime you're putting something out there that not like, there are a few things that everybody agrees on. I think in general, it's the sense of putting yourself out there in any way kind of invites that in, and you have to take it in stride, and you have to know, like, these people, like, not everybody has the same worldview. They can't, you know, even between me and Kevin, like, of course there's like conflict, and conflict does not need to be unhealthy. I think it can be productive, and I honestly think it really enhances my life the more I like have these conversations, but sometimes they're just hard and I don't love them. But it shapes me as a person and it helps me grow. So I think they're important.
And again, it goes with teamwork. Sometimes one of us can really be affected by a comment or something because we're both sensitive about kind of different things. And the other is there to chill the other out. So, I mean, we're all people. We all, you know, things hurt. But it's good to be able to.
Good that you guys have each other. Yeah.
Emotionally, I think that we are in a very good place because of that, because we both have our hands in this world, right? This world of reselling, and we have a lot of reselling friends, and we're part of the community and like, I don't know, like, I think that we are very much involved in the Poshmark or reselling community. And I think that there is an element of having a buddy in it that's like, okay, like we can both talk about these things and we don't need to use social media even as that outlet, which I think is something that's really helpful. And it's been really useful for us to be able to have conversations around. Even I can bounce things off of Kevin. Hey, what do you think if I shared something like this? How do you think people will respond to that? Do you think that this is appropriate? Do you think, you know? And so there's been times where he's filtered me out, and it's probably been for the best, you know? Yeah.
That's so true. You got to get yourself a buddy. If you don't have one living in you got to find one, because that's so true. I mean, I feel like I had someone do that for me just the other day. Like, I was like, I have this idea, and she's like, don't do it. And I'm like, okay, like, thank you for that. Like, that was very helpful, you know? So kind of pivoting a little bit, and, you know, Instagram kind of does make me think about this too, but we talked a little bit earlier about how you guys do have a lot on your plate. You have your hands in a lot of different things. So you have like this clothing line that you guys just birthed not too long ago. You've got cats at home. You've got, you know, Poshmark and Twice Our Cost, and Kristen's making websites for people on the side. Can you talk a little bit about what time management means to you and what it looks like, and how you know, cultivate all of these different things simultaneously?
Yeah, so I think that having our hands in a lot of things can be very challenging, because the more you have hands in things, the less focus you have, and the less that you're able to really grow the things that are most meaningful to you. So right now I'm doing some website development. We had the clothing line that was supposed to launch this spring, which given what's going on right now, I am very, very thankful that is not the direction. Now is not the time to be launching a clothing brand. I actually still have the fabrics right here. So that's kind of on pause right now, because we really don't know what that looks like. And I don't feel like I can devote the focus on it that I would love to devote to it right now. But there is like a lot of that happening of like, we're here, and it's really nice to have the multiple streams of income, because as one fails, another one can come through. You know, as we were unable to source, we were able to build websites for people and for resellers to be able to have their own website. And there is like this element of like flexibility with all of these different streams. But if I'm trying to do all of them in one day, or if I'm trying to do all of them even in 1 week, it's the distractions can be very difficult to grow that focus, and something that I lack very much so. So what we've been doing is we have these journals, and they're called, or planners, they're not journals, they're planners. And it's the full focus planner. And basically what you do is each day you like, at the beginning of the week, you log like, what are the top goals that you had for the week? Kind of, it breaks it down. So you have like yearly, annual goals, and you have quarterly goals, and then you have weekly goals, and then you have daily goals. And so every day you say, what are the 3 things I must complete today in order for this day to be considered a success? So you have 3 main things, and then you've got, you know, the laundry list of other things that need to get done. And that's really helped us focus on what our goals are and saying, like, here are our goals. We need to have like a streamlined focus on these goals. And quarantine has really put us upside down. And so I feel like where we are right now with having our hands in a lot of things is not necessarily where I want to be. It's just where I feel like we have to be right now, because we're just, as full-time resellers, we're just trying to survive this thing with not being able to go out and source, and having people, you know, losing their jobs and unable to, and resale arguably is good for when people are losing, like, need clothes but don't have like money to spend in retail stores. There's an argument to be made around that, but I think at the end of the day, there's just this kind of sense of anxiety over all of us right now.
Yeah.
And I think that people are just not in the mood to be shopping right now. Even though they're home, they're not in the mood for it. So
that's so true. I know. I like messaged someone yesterday because it was closet clear out and they had liked an item, just letting them know that it was closet clear out, all that stuff. And she was like, thanks, but I think I've been shopping too much. Like, I really need to put a pause on it. Like, I'm just home and I don't have anything else to do. So I think there are some people like that, but generally speaking, like you said, like, I think a lot of people don't have the same job security that they did before. They may not even have their job, or they're just in this like apocalyptic, like, you know, I must just hoard all the things, and clothes is not, you know, a necessity right now. So
right.
It's a tricky and interesting time that we're in, for sure. So
like, looking at our business right now, like, you wouldn't actually have a good picture of what our business usually is or where it's going. Is just right now feels like a little bit like survival. I think a lot of full-time resellers are feeling that right now, of like, okay, what kind of income can I generate and how can I be creative around with my resources? Because we all have, everybody on the feed, you, Becky, we all have like these unique resources, skills, the way you perceive the world and the way that you accomplish things. Like, we all have this like diverse set of resources. And I think that part of this time right now is us looking at, okay, like, kind of laying on the table, what do we have here and what can we do with that, you know? And then really pressing into the areas, like, for example, website development. Well, resellers are home right now and they're looking for new ways to sell, and they're maybe selling on Instagram successfully and they want a website, and I can build that for them. Like, that's something I can do at home. So it's pivoting into those areas, even if I don't want to do website development as my, like, I don't actually want to do that as like my long-term thing. It still feels like I'm working for people, and I want to work for myself.
Yeah.
It's what we're doing right now.
Of all this, yeah,
it's what we're doing right now. So, it's just an interesting time, especially for those of us who literally flip clothes as our entire income.
Yeah. So I feel like the answer to this question could be one thing given the state that we're in now, and then maybe you would have answered it very differently like 3 months ago. But my question is, what is your favorite part of being a part of this Voyage is a Verb team brand now, today, but then also maybe like what it was 3 months ago when you could go out and sort of normal, but
what is normal? Every week it changes around here.
I love right now that we, in the midst of this quarantine, that Kristen and I have built a community to kind of back us, and like we have no shortage of interaction with people, and it's really fun, and that is largely because of this reselling community. So as of now, it's just great to have that. Like, if we're feeling down, 100 people are there to say like, hey, everything's cool.
Yeah.
Like, that's awesome.
I was going to say community too. I think that's now, it was then, it will be the future. I think for the most beautiful part about being who we are, I guess, I don't know. And anybody can tap into it. So maybe it's not super unique, but it's just like the community and the people who have rallied behind us. And our cat has what we think is cancer. And the whole community last week, like, I just like sobbed on Instagram. The whole community just rallied around us. And like the fact that people in the midst of a pandemic care about how my cat's doing, like I get DMs, how's Nora doing? And it's just beautiful. It's a beautiful thing to be a part of this. And it's a beautiful thing to have friends that I know will be forever friends, friends that I can hang out with, and we can go on Zoom. And even though we met through flipping used clothes, like that we can have a drink together and not even talk about reselling, because it's just, like, the connections we've made have been beautiful. And so I think that's always what it's going to be. It's going to be community.
And it's crazy that that's the thing that you were most scared of when you had that opportunity to like step into it. You're like, oh God, this is going to be so hard. And
Good observation. Absolutely.
It's a really good observation. I thought about it. I remember that day I saw my friends, like we hung out with our friends that night, and I cried to my friends. It was crazy. They all knew I was doing it, but I cried to them. And I was just like, I feel like the reason why I feel so sensitive about doing this is because it is going to be something bigger than what I think it's going to be.
Yeah.
And like what I expect. And I had no idea what direction. Like I literally got my Instagram to like be like, here are the things I'm selling on, Poshmark, like hashtag Poshmark, like maybe people could find me that way. I wasn't expecting to find this kind of community out of it. I had no idea what I was getting into. So but I did it.
Yeah.
And we're so happy that you did. The community is amazing. And so I kind of have come to the end of my questions, and I'm trying not to take up too much of anyone else's, trying not to take up too much of anyone's time. But I did tell the people in the chat that if they had any questions, they could ask them. And also Amber from Amber Resells wanted to let you guys know that you guys are just awesome at coming up with names for yourselves. So VOYAGE is a Verb is awesome. Twice Our Cost is awesome. She would like some help if you want to give it to her, she said.
I've actually had some thoughts on how do you create a resale brand name, right? How do you create a brand name even within the scope of reselling or whatever? And our Instagram handle, actually, I don't think anyone really knows this except for maybe our first few followers, but originally it was VOYAGE is a Verb clothing, because I always thought if I didn't have clothing or resale or thrift or reselling or something like that in my name, that people wouldn't know what we did. And so I feel like having that like little bumper on there was really helpful for the first few months that we had our account. But eventually when people started tagging us and things like that, we're like, okay, people know who we are now, and we can now drop the clothing. So now we're VOYAGE is a Verb. And I think there's an element when you're building a name that when you can rebrand anytime. So I think it doesn't really matter what you've got right now. I waited 6 months to start my Instagram account because I couldn't think of a name. And I think I would have been better off just being like, Kristen is reselling. And then just posting content and just get moving, right? If you have a dream to do YouTube or Instagram or whatever, just get moving with it however you need to. So Amber resells, perfect. You're moving, you're going. And I think from there, something that I really enjoyed about VOYAGE is a Verb specifically, not so much Twice Our Cost, but VOYAGE is a Verb, is that it's pretty limitless. So we're able to move in different directions and it doesn't limit us. So we don't have Poshmark in our name, or we don't have reselling in our name and things like that, because I think that it's challenging to move out of that if you want to. But if you know, there's some people, I think of a British Posher, we all know Jen, and there's an element of what Jen is doing where she is the guru for Poshmark. So it makes sense that she would have that in her name. Even if there might be times where she feels like she can't go from that, there's something to be said. And I mean, obviously Becky on Poshmark, there's something to be said about building the brand around a brand that's really established and building content and educational materials around that. And then you can always go from there. You can always grow in whatever direction you want from there. So if you're looking at moving outside of Amber Resells, I think I always really like it when people have their own name. I like Becky on Poshmark. I like Amber Resells because like we mentioned, that is your brand. You are your brand, especially if you're making content. I mean, if you're making content, you got to be the face of your brand. And so I think for that reason, I think it's great to have your name. And I like it when people have their name in their handles too, because I'm like, okay, I know your name. I see you. And I'm like, oh,
I know. I'm very scared of going to Posh Fest because I'm very scared that I will see people and I will not know their names. I'll just be like, at blah, 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 Instagram handle.
Nightmare.
It's awful. And before I talk to people or leave comments, I have to go to their Instagram and see their about me. But then some of them don't have their name there either. So I'm just like, well,
gotta click into Poshmark, gotta click into the about me on Poshmark. I think the big thing is if you don't have your name and you are showing your face and you're creating a brand around your content, make sure you have your name as your name in your bio. I think that's really, really important. I think resellers, it's a very competitive place right now, but maybe not so much. I don't know. But it's there's a lot of noise happening, right? There's a lot of people doing a lot of things. And I think that the more you can tap into what you stand for, what you are good at, what you bring to the table, the more you can get comfortable with yourself and what you love, the more that's going to shine through in your brand.
Yeah. For sure.
Hey, real quick, Jewel Butterfly asked about the small business administration mentoring.
Oh, yeah.
I just don't want to let that go because
yeah.
you should do. What do they go over? Anything.
Yeah.
Do you need a business plan? Do you need to form an LLC? Do you need connections in an industry?
Yeah. So we should mention what SBA is.
The small business.
Oh, did you say that? Administration.
Yeah. Small business administration, whatever it is.
Yeah. Small business administration.
SBA, just Google it. And what we did is it pulls up a form and you can choose the mentor you want to talk to.
And that score specifically.
And they give you what their specialty is. So we found a guy that knew clothing manufacturing and it was perfect.
Yeah. It was
cool. So do it.
So small business,
SBA is awesome.
The SBA, the Small Business Administration, is like the government branch that supports small businesses. So they give tons of free resources. Like if you go to their website, you can download a template to create a business plan. They have classes. They have free mentorship through SCORE, which is what you're mentoring, SCORE. Yeah. And you can get a free mentor. These are people who have sold, like a guy who sold his business for
$70 million.
Like
oh my gosh.
And he's just there to hang out with you and to like help you, ask you the hard questions and ask you. So there is an element of like mentorship is super important. And yeah, so SBA is awesome. If you guys have not heard of them, do it.
I remember you guys talking about that on your stories once.
Yeah.
And what a great free valuable resource, like you said. Okay, so if you guys don't mind, there were like 2 other questions that came in. Kevin, I didn't see that question, so good job for catching that. But so there were 2 questions that people in the chat asked. One is from Girly Girl Style, who has an amazing guys. But she said, "Have you done brainstorming with others you trust?"
Yeah,
we have.
We have
for sure.
Yeah.
It's been more
passive.
We're sitting at a bar and like,
what do you think of this?
We're all here. Let's talk.
Yeah.
But I constantly have ideas that we need to get our people together and talk specifically. So we don't do it much, but my God, it's valuable.
It's so challenging brainstorming with people who are not resellers, even though they they bring specific
things.
Also
be good, yeah.
They bring specific outsider perspective to the table. So when we talk with our friends about it, they'll bring things up that I'm like, oh, I don't even know if I would have gone there with the way I was thinking, which is really nice. But there is an element of like when I brainstorm, I really like brainstorming with people who are in our industry specifically, because I feel like there's less of a hurdle to get over to explain how things work. You know what I mean? Like you don't have to get them caught up on 7 years of understanding of what I'm doing. You know what I mean? Like I'm 7 years in. It's hard to get somebody who's literally at, whatever to kind of go in and give us advice. And
but it's great for outside the box thing.
Yeah, it is.
Which is why I love it.
Yeah,
that's good. And then the second question is from Dee Dee Brecca, and she said, "What would you say to someone who tells you to go get a 9-to-5 job?" Ooh. Has that happened to you guys?
No, not really.
Not the way we expected.
Yeah.
That's good. It's a good circle.
Yeah, we do. People are very supportive of what we're doing. The one thing, this is Sherlock, everybody.
Hi, Sherlock. Oh my God.
Hi. The one thing I think we do have people, like, for example, your parents who are like, hey, you guys should just be interviewing often anyway. Like, it doesn't hurt to be interviewing. Keep the skill of interviewing up. Like, keep saying you might find something you love that you don't even know exists. So, like, don't shut that off. I feel like that's the most pressure we get on us is like, hey, just keep that
and that's
open.
Like good pressure.
And it's good. It's healthy. We don't have anybody that we know of who's ever said to our face, you shouldn't be doing that.
Well,
but what would we say?
You gonna pay us? Like,
you got a job for me where I can still work for myself? Yeah.
You want to pay us? We'll do it.
I would say, honestly, I would say it's not bad advice. I think that there is an element that you get from the 9-to-5 but okay, here's what I would say right now. Given our current circumstances, this is what I would say. I would say, listen, there are so many people who had 9-to-5s before this pandemic who don't have 9-to-5s right now.
Yeah.
And even though our business is upside down and radically shifted, we have ways to be able to keep this moving. Like when you're working for yourself, you can always fall back on yourself. You know what I mean? And if you're working for somebody else, it doesn't mean that like, it's just like for us, like there was something about that was really empowering to me where I looked at it, I'm like, okay, I can't source anywhere, but wait, I can go create websites for people. And there's like an empowering moment of like, things can come at us and we can persevere through that. Now, granted, there's other things too that I think that there could be arguments to be made. Like, what if somebody gets really sick or hurt and has to spend time in the like? There's things like that where it's like, okay, well, maybe I can't work during that, so that would be challenging. But I just think, given this, I'm just I'm not convinced that working a 9 to 5 is safer than working for yourself. That's what I'll say.
Yeah, no, for sure. And I think you hit the nail on the head when you said, look at the job security of people who did have 9 to 5s, given what's happening in our nation and in the world right now. That job security is no longer there. Even like some of the greatest jobs that people are like, oh, I'm set for life.
It's
so
it can happen. I think when you can, and I think you could always have a 9 to 5 and keep those skills up that you could, like, for example, like if we had 9 to 5 and this happened, well then, yeah, I could still do those things. So I think if you're able to build these skills outside of your 9 to 5, that way, if something were to happen to your 9 to 5, you can fall back on it, you know?
And I think the difference, it seems like you guys have really found your element and you're doing something that you love. It's not like you wake up in the morning and you're like, well, crap, like I have to go find more clothes. And I'm like, I hate that, I mean, you guys are really in your element. And I think that there are some people who resell and it's not something that they're excited about. They just do it because it is a source of income and they would rather be doing something else. And this is their stepping stone to that, which is awesome, like all the power to you, and that's fine. But if you're happy and you enjoy working for yourself and you enjoy working on your own terms, like I think the way that you guys are doing it is great. And I love that too, of just like, things are down right now, especially for, I imagine, full-time resellers. But instead of like wasting time wallowing in self-pity, pivoting and like saying, well, what can I do right now? Versus this sucks, like I can't do anything. What can I do? And I think you guys have done that so beautifully. And that's why you're still doing what you're doing, which is awesome.
Yeah, I think that there is something to be said about people who are resourceful in this industry, people who take things in stride, who understand, scrappy, who understand a pandemic could hit anytime. So how are you going to get through it? And like, instead of kind of getting upset at Poshmark or getting upset at buyers or getting upset with the world or this or that, it's just taking it into your own hands. And I understand, like, yeah, it sucks. We're feeling it. Don't get it wrong. We are absolutely feeling this. And our world is a little bit upside down right now. But we're taking things in stride and saying, well, what can we control? What can we do?
And it's a learning experience. If anything could happen. So if a month after this pandemic is over, a new one brews up, which is possible, right? Like, but it's not
going to comes back.
Or like, oh, we kind of have an idea of what to do.
Yeah,
like that's
growth. Cool. It's an experience to grow for sure.
That's really cool. Like,
very cool.
I don't feel as helpless if things kind of go bad.
Yeah. So my last question for you,
pretty helpless.
So with you guys having all this time at home, I feel like you guys must be stewing on something good. But my final question is, what is the next thing that we can look out for when it comes to Voyage Is a Verb? What are you guys working on right now?
I think for me, we're working on focus. We're working on, instead of being in a lot of things, we're looking at bringing it in a little bit. So I think we're still figuring that out. There's nothing like new on the horizon as it stands right now, new. But that doesn't mean that tomorrow's I'm not going to wake up with an idea and Kevin's going to have to roll with it, because within an hour of me having the idea, I will have somehow implemented it in some capacity.
And just like playing catch up and still sharing your closet and still,
I would think in this next, at least for however long this virus kind of lasts, the pandemic, things will probably be more refined from maybe not as often releases, but better releases or and probably I don't know. Just who knows? It's so hard to tell with the way things are going right now. And are we going to be okay in 2 weeks or 3 months? So
I know.
Who knows?
Yeah.
And that is the crazy thing. Like, there's no way to plan out for any time because we just don't.
Your 5-year plan is out the window.
Yeah.
Who knows?
Yep. But I think that for us, it's just going to be a constant, like, if you guys follow us on Instagram already, or if you don't, we just kind of share. We take everything in stride and we just share things as they come to us. We share ideas as they come to us. We share perspectives as they come to us. And good or bad. Sometimes they're off the mark and we do our best to take that and go with it. But I think right now, the goal is hopefully that you guys will see more focus out of us. You'll see a little bit more, I would love to share more numbers. I want to do more experiments where we can show the data behind it. Those are things that I want to do here in the near future.
Awesome. Do you guys have any final thoughts for everyone who's here? Thank you guys again so much for being here. There's like 85 people here now.
Wow. I'm glad I didn't get to see the number this whole time because I probably would have gotten in my head about it.
Oh yeah, no. There were only like 4 people watching. It was your mom, my mom. Don't worry about it. So
as for me,
yeah, Sherlock. Yeah. Do you guys have any final thoughts?
Yeah.
No, the moon is supposed to be really pretty tonight. If you guys are out there, last night was the full moon, but tonight is supposed to be awesome still. So if you missed it, go check her out.
Go run out, see the moon.
Yeah, get out there, get some fresh air.
Yeah, get some fresh air, but also stay home.
If you can.
Also stay home. Yeah. If you can.
While staying home.
Yeah.
Again, this is Kristen and Kevin. They are Voyage is a Verb. I do have their website, and that can kind of funnel you to everything else. I do highly, highly, highly recommend following them on Instagram because, someone was talking about like the SBA thing. And like for me, watching Voyage is a Verb stories and like following them on Instagram, I feel like I'm learning about like how to do business. And so it's like,
you're so sweet.
Honestly, like I'm not just blowing smoke. I'm like,
we love you, Becky.
So there's so much value on their Instagram page, on their Instagram feed, and in their stories and all that stuff. So if you're not following them, do yourselves a favor.
Do yourself a favor.
Do that favor to yourselves. They also do have a YouTube channel. They're not really like working on it actively, but if you want to learn how to tie the perfect bow or which like that,
and you do
videos as well as. Like which boxes from USPS. I mean, they do have some really good quality videos as well. It's just not a focus of theirs right now. So that website that you see will funnel you to all of their different resources. If you need a website that you want Kristen to make for you, so many different things. So make sure that you guys check them out. Do yourselves that favor for real. And now go out and look at the moon. So on that,
look at the moon, everyone. You're awesome, Becky. Thank you for having us. Thanks for watching, everyone.
Thank you so much. Bye, guys.
Bye, everybody.
Good night.
Okay.